Hello, it's 9 p.m. in Art. This time to English New Edition. For tonight headlines, we have the Minister visit the state of progress of the National Road 1. For the international scene, the International Monetary Fund calls for caution on reforms in the Sub-Saharan Africa. Welcome to our newsroom. Transforming Education Summit, the Minister of National Education Vocational Training, His Excellency Mustafa Mohamed Mahamoud, at the head of a strong delegation of his department, participate in the Transforming Education Summit held in New York from 16 to 19 September 2022. He is accompanied by the Ambassador of Djibouti, Permanent Representative to the United Nations, His Excellency Mohamed Siad Douale. A day of mobilization led and organized by youth kicked off the work of the summit on Friday, September 16, 2022. Youth engagement is at the heart of this global event, and young people made their voice heard and shared their commitment and perspectives on education transformation and with the decision makers and stakeholders through meaningful intergenerational dialogues. This exchange took place in 6 plenary sessions and 5 simultaneous panels on key themes such as students' leadership through transformational education, gender, climate actions for inclusive education, where the Minister of National Education shared the experience of Djibouti and communicated on the new project of integrated rural school, whose innovative concept seduced the participant. It should be recalled that in the framework of the pre-summit held at UNESCO in Paris from June 28 to 30, 2022, governments and key stakeholders have defined a national response to meet the priority actions. In addition, the summit required a preparatory process that took into account the priorities of member states. The Republic of Djibouti, like other member states, organized its national consultations last June to ensure the concrete engagement of youth and all education stakeholders. The head of state and government will announce their national commitment to educational transformation on September 19. For his part, the Minister of National Education, Vocational Training, His Excellency Mustafa Mohamed Mahamoud, said for his part that the youth engagement is at the heart of this global event, and young people made their voice heard and shared their commitment and perspectives on education transformation with decision makers and stakeholders through meaningful intergenerational dialogue. This exchange took place in plenary session and simultaneous panel on key themes such as students' leadership through transformational education, gender, climate actions for inclusive education, where the Minister of National Education shared the experience of Djibouti and communicated on the new project of integrated rural school, whose innovative concept seduced the participants. On Thursday, September 15, 2022, the Minister of Infrastructure and Equipment, Hassan Hamad Arbahim, visited Dikil region to see the construction work of National Road 1, specifically the Dagiru Galamo section. The delegation led by the Minister proceeded to a visit of the works and structures in the locality of Alam Balatu, Galamo, Garabase, as well as the installations in Gora Abus and the state of the deviations of the section Dekhel Dagiru. After having traveled along the corridor, the minister chaired a working meeting in the base of the CCECC, a company located in Yoboki, with the stakeholders of this project, which had for objectives to put the point on the state of progress and to palliate the obstacles related to the good progress of the activities in order to accelerate the construction work. It should also be noted that despite the delays caused by the heavy rains observed in recent weeks, the work is underway and is carried out in good conditions. back from Juba after his participation in the annual Oil and Energy Conference and passing through Addis Ababa. The Minister of Energy in charge of Natural Resources, Younis Ali Geddi, took advantage of his presence in the Ethiopian capital to start a working visit in these countries on Thursday, September 15, 2022. This working visit of the Ministry of Energy in Addis Ababa is part of consultations and high-level meetings held periodically between officials of both countries on ongoing projects. It is also part of the common desire of the two countries to continue efforts related to the integrations of their economies, especially in the field of hydrocarbon. During this working day, the Minister Younis Ali Geddi in turn met with the Minister of Finance and Economy, Ahmed Shide, and the Minister of Mine and Petroleum, Mr. Takele Umma Benti. Started a few months ago. The preparation is for the 12th CGSOE Games, which will take place from December 4 to 11, 2022 in Mauritius, are continuing. It is in this sense that a ministerial meeting bringing together the 7 countries in the CGSOE, including the Republic of Djibouti, represented by the Minister of Youth and Culture, Hibo Mumin Asowe, opened this morning after clearing the agenda. The various state representatives were able to intervene. For her part, the Djiboutian minister stressed the importance of a synergy between the island in the best interests of the youth, then emphasized the progress of his department on the participation of youth in cultural competitions. In addition, the minister was congratulated by all the members of the CGSOE headed by the Secretary General for having honored the commitment to pay the full statutory dues, thanks to the aspirations of the Djiboutian government to put the development of youth at the heart of the development of the Republic of Djibouti since the creation of the Ministry of Youth and Culture. The awareness campaign among young people to register to vote continues successfully in the various CDC of Djibouti City and those of the commune of Balbala. During the day of Wednesday, September 14, 2022, the CDC of Hajidide opened its door to welcome the inhabitants of the neighborhood 1 and 2. 100 young first-time voters have already answered to call to register to take part in these civic and citizens exercises after awareness session that bore fruit. The inhabitants of Hajidide welcomed with pride these initiatives of Her Excellency the Minister of Youth and Culture in close collaboration with his counterpart, His Excellency the Minister of Interior, to give a breath of oxygen to the operations of registration on the electoral rolls that are held within the CDC. During the registration process, a team led by the prefect of the first district in person Abdi Hassan and his collaborators made the trip to the CDC of Hajidide. Also, the presence of the Honorable Deputy of the first district, Mr. Ali Shadli, the president of the commune of Bulaos, Abdul Qadir Iman Aden, as well as the local elected officials have attended to be present on the spot to follow in views the progress of the registrations on the electoral registration at the CDC of Hajidide. This afternoon, it was the turn of the CDC of Pika 12 of the commune of Balbala to follow in the footsteps in the organizations of awareness sessions young among youth for the registrations on the electoral roll. The mayor of the city of Djibouti, in collaboration with the municipality of Balbala, organized this morning an information and awareness workshop for the registration of voters' card in the center of Al-Rahma complex. This sensitization ceremony was chaired by the mayor of the city of Djibouti, Said Dawood, and so the participation of the president of the municipality of Balbala, Mohammed Hassan, the vice president of the municipality of Balbala, Mr. Suleiman Ali, also the presence of Honorable Member of Parliament of the constituency of the commune of Balbala, local elected officials, councillors of commune of Balbala, elders, women, and youth activists. This ceremony to launch an awareness caravan is part of strengthening the operations of registration of voters' card in close collaboration in the various popular neighborhood councils of the commune of Balbala. For his part, the mayor of the city of Djibouti, Said Daoud, said that the information and awareness campaign for the registration of voters card is also continuing in the various popular neighborhoods of the commune of Balbala. Registration on the voters card is a civic act, citizen act. As part of the strengthening relations in the field of security between the Republic of Djibouti and the State of Qatar, the Director General of the National Police, Colonel Abdulrahman Ali Kahin, made a working visit to Qatar from 14 to 15 September. The General Director of the National Police was accompanied by the Ambassador of Djibouti to Qatar, Dayib Dubad Roble, Colonel Abdul Qadir Ibrahim Gona, and Commander Yusuf Iltiri Darar. During his first day of work, Colonel Abdulrahman Ali Kahin met with the Major General Saad bin Jassim Al Khulaifi, the Director General of the Public Security of the State of Qatar. During this meeting, the two officials have discussed at length the security issues dismaying the two countries and have examined ways and means to strengthen cooperation in this file between the two institutions, especially in the field of public safety and law enforcement, intelligence and information, illegal immigration, the fight against terrorism and external threat, as well as other topics of common interest. As part of the capacity building on gender statistics, the Ministry of Women and Family, in collaboration with the Ministry of Trade and the National Institute of Statistics of Djibouti and COMESA, have closed this Thursday a 5-day training workshop on gender statistics at the Hotel Acacia, a training organized by the COMESA in collaboration with the Ministry of Women's Affairs, the Ministry of Trade, and the Djibouti Institute of Statistics. The training workshop was animated by an expert from COMESA with the participation of about 20 gender officers from ministerial departments and institutions such as the Djibouti Statistics Institute for the production of reliable and efficient gender statistics, with the main objectives of continuous support for the promotion and empowerment of women and girls. During the workshop, several themes were discussed for the production of gender statistics. During the workshop, several themes for the production of gender data were discussed, and it was also noted that the gender issues is a cross-cutting dimensions involved.
When you communicate data, you are telling something to someone who is able to hear. You are telling that person also what he wants, what he's looking for. So the relationship between the two is a kind of a must. Everyone should be, the institutions or the system should be able to hear to those who use the data, while at the same time, those who produce need to be understood. They need to be there in the same stage to understand each other. I think for those who are statisticians on this work, you managed to have an idea of what are we talking about when we talk about gender. And I'm glad we had good statisticians here. They could really move ahead on the estimations. But for those who are not statisticians, they are the gender focal points. They also had a view on how to use the data. So they know what, when they are using proportions, what are we talking about? When we are using percent ratio, when we are talking about graphs, we know what we are talking about.
Listen to the participant of this workshop.
Today marks the end of the 5 days workshop on gender statistics. And the workshop has come at a very good time when Djibouti is conducting the national census. The national census is going to come up with the frame which will be used for collection of gender statistics. And then I would like to thank the participants for the job well done. I would like also to thank the National Statistics Office and the Ministry of Gender for organizing this workshop, not forget getting the Djibouti government for the logistical support.
The National Agency for Persons with Disability held this morning a ceremony to award certificate of training on priority disease and COVID-19. The ceremony was big, and in the images of the event that brought together several important personalities working to improve the lives of people with special needs and disabilities. Let us recall that this training was of paramount importance for disabled people because the goal was through this training to instill in disabled people the importance of the very notions of health and how to protect themselves and theirs from priority disease as well as COVID-19. This training lasted 9 days and was given for 3 types of people because people with a physical hearing impairment, it is necessary to add that all disabled people who participate in the training were awarded by certificate by the hand of the officials who came to honors with their presence this day, which has a special meaning for the participant. The Minister of Labor in charge of formalization and social protection closed the workshop on the establishment of collaborative platforms for better professional integration. This workshop was closed by the Secretary General of the Ministry of Labor, Abdallah Ali Mohammed, and was attended by the Executive Secretary in charge of the reform of administration, the General Director of NFIP, INAP, and several executives of the Ministry of Labor. The objective of this workshop, which is crucial for a better integration into the labor market, is first to discuss ways to improve coordination and to reflect on the establishment of a framework for exchange of information and collaboration between local actors of the labor market in both the public and private sector. After 2 days of intense debate and discussions, recommendations and ideas were formulated for a better design and development of a robust platforms where all labor market information will be gathered under one roof. In his speech, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Labor, Abdallah Ali Mohammed, thanked the European Union for funding this project and the tax experts for sharing their experiences. He also congratulated the participants for their diligence and selflessness during the workshop. Today, International Organization for Migration and the Prefecture of Ali Sabih region signed an agreement concerning the joint management of storage space for the benefit of Djiboutian and migrants in need. The Memorandum of Understanding was signed by the International Organization for Migration Chief of Mission, Ms. Stephanie Devio, and the Prefect of the Al Sabih region, Musa Aden Migane. This space will strengthen the assistance provided to migrants in transit through these regions and the vulnerable communities that host them. It will allow for the distribution of food and non-food items. International Organization for Migration, Djibouti continues to work on emergency preparedness and response issues. These activities are implemented within the framework of the project Direct Assistance to Vulnerable Migrants transiting through the migration corridor in Djibouti, funded by the European Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid Operation and Sustainable Solution for the most vulnerable host population, refugee and migrants on the territory of Djibouti, funded by the European Union. The day ended with the distributions of food and non-food items to 184 vulnerable migrants, 85 men, 45 women, and 4 girls and 50 boys, and 64 vulnerable people from the host communities. A supervisory mission of the International Fund for Agricultural Development as part of the implementation of the Integrated Water Resources Management Project, which will operate in 11 watersheds of the country, visited the region of Obok on September 14. On September, he paid a courtesy visit to the prefect to get an overview of the IFAD's current and future investment. Working meeting with the president of the Regional Council of Obok, then an exchange meeting with the civil society, including the Fishermen's Cooperative Women's Association and youth of the project interventions area. In the afternoon, the delegation, accompanied by the teams of the project management unit, made an inspection visit to the fishery the ice factory, and the cold room. Finally, on September 15, the mission team went to the locality of Orobor to meet with the local steering committee to discuss the needs identified, expressed by the population, and then validated by the steering committee through hydraulic and pastoral development plans for the Dalayafa Ma'deho route. For the international scene in Kidal, northern Mali, an alliance of mostly Tuareg fighters is enforcing law and order. These armed men are part of the coordination of Azawad movement, a non-state system that provides security for the strategic city. The agreement offered them greater local autonomy and the possibility of integrating their fighters into the reconstituted state-run army, but the agreement has only been implemented in fragments. The CMA has since taken control of the city and runs the prisoners, grants pardons, and decided whether a suspect will be brought to justice under Islamic law rather than state law. But for now, calm reign in Kidal, the Gao and Menaka regions have been plagued for months by fighting between the armed groups and jihadists with civilian caught in the crossfire. This situation has led to fears of renewed fighting in Kidal. For the Sub-Saharan Africa, International Monetary Fund calls for cautions on reforms. The IMF on Thursday called on governments in Sub-Saharan Africa to be cautious about macroeconomic reforms as famine spreads in a region heavily affected by the consequences of COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine. According to its estimates, at least 123 million people, on about 12% of the population of Sub-Saharan Africa, may be acutely food insecure, facing severe malnutrition or unable to meet their basic food needs. The International Monetary Fund writes global warming is contributing to an increase in the number of hungry people, while East Africa is experiencing one of the worst droughts in its history. The impact on economies of the COVID-19 pandemic has combined with a spike in grain prices fueled by the war in Ukraine, the International Monetary Fund also noted. This is it for the news. Thanks for watching us. Have a good evening.